Welcome to the jungle, ladies and gentlemen. We got fun and games as we dissect The Jungle Book, the 2016 version. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. We talk movies, and today we're talking about The Jungle Book, Jon Favreau's new movie. Very, very exciting. We've got quite the panel here today. Everyone gathered round to talk about this story here. We got Demetri Panos back from vacation.
That was no vacation. That was called CinemaCon, and that was no vacation.
That was a different type of jungle.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, it was.
He is a VP of Exhibitor Relations, and that's what he was off doing. So,
meeting with a lot of exhibitors.
That's right. So he'll bring in that perspective. Sara Stretton returns.
Hello.
With different hair.
Have I been gone? I don't feel like I've been gone.
Yeah, to me.
I feel like I was here like last week.
Anyway, she's got the jungly hair, so she's here ready to talk about it. We have Marisa Serafini, content producer of the network. Welcome, Marisa Serafini.
Hello, everyone. Yes.
And she's got the Jungle Book, the official collector's edition guide book.
I do. It was staring at me at a Target, and I had to get it. The Jungle Book. It is filled with a lot of photos of concept art, paintings, drawings of the original animated in 1967, and the new one. There's a lot of good information in here.
Well, there you go. So we're definitely going to talk about that.
What did Disney get for that?
I don't know.
Curious.
They got $10 from me.
$10.
So
$10. There you go. And joining us for the first time on Anatomy of a Movie, we have Becca.
Hi.
Introduce yourself to everybody.
I'm Becca Brown. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram, Becca B Talks TV.
And she primarily stays behind the scenes, primarily over at AfterBuzz. She does a lot of the social media, but Jungle Book is one of her favorite movies, and so we couldn't deny her the right to talk about it.
Thank you.
Let's start with overall impressions. Let's start over at this side of the table. Demetri.
You know, going into this, I'm a fan of the animated movie, and I thought they really had taken a really going live action with an animated movie making animals talk. I was like, geez, I wonder if they're biting off more than they can chew. But with today's technology, and once this movie was done, it's a fully realized remake of this animated Disney classic that I think they actually improved upon. I actually think that they made pretty much a better movie from a narrative standpoint, and the ending, to be specific, and we'll get into the ending a little bit later. I thought the voice talent was amazing, and this little kid who plays Mowgli was fantastic. I guess my one little nitpick is, I love Christopher Walken, but he ain't no Louis Prima. So that was my only little nitpick on that, but everything else, this movie really clicks, and I think it's a really solid movie that I hope that we don't forget come Oscar time towards the end of the year.
Unfortunately, just like Cinderella, I think it'll be slightly forgotten, which is a damn shame because that was an equally great movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
But Sara Stretton, go ahead.
To go off of what Demetri said, I think we're a little bit on the same page. I thought the
You're even reading the same book.
yeah.
Keep going.
Visually, I thought this movie was just astounding. I was one of the naysayers when the first trailer came out. I was really worried about how I was going to receive the talking of the animals, and I thought that they pulled that off flawlessly. It felt very natural and grounded and believable. Loved how it looked. I liked the adjustment and kind of how the themes shifted from this version compared to the animated version or other versions of the Jungle Book that I've seen. My nitpicks are also similarly, was not a huge fan of the King Louis sequence. We can get into that. And a little bit concerned if it's too frightening for kids. I know that I personally jumped out of my seat at certain points, and I was like, this is getting scary. But overall, I really did think that they handled this movie in a beautiful way. I went out on a limb, saw it in 3D, thought it just looked breathtaking, and I'm excited to hear what you all have to say. Yeah.
Yeah, I did too. I saw it in 3D as well, and just before you arrived, we were talking about, I brought up I couldn't believe that this was a PG movie. to be honest. But we'll talk about
Yeah.
we could talk about ratings and such after. But yeah, we should bring up the 3D. I mean, I saw it in 3D. You saw it in 3D.
We'll talk about when we get to the animation.
Yeah.
We'll spend a good bit. Go ahead, Marisa.
I saw it in 2D. I really enjoyed this film because watching it as an adult for this film, I thought there were some very intense moments for kids. Because being an adult, I was like, well, kids are watching this right next to me. How are they handling it? Because I was like, what? I really did enjoy this film because I felt there was some more backstory to some of the characters that you probably didn't see in the animated film if you didn't read the story that was based off of. I liked that, and I liked how even the animals, how he interacted with Mowgli. I felt there were more humanistic characteristics to it, which I enjoyed. And for story development, for character development, I liked that. And visually, I thought it looked beautiful for an animated. That's a humongous feat that they did, and I think they pulled it off really well. And some musical elements I appreciated. And it wasn't a musical, but I liked how the music, and we'll get into that, because how that really,
Flowed.
helped with this film. But overall, I really did enjoy this film. I got excited at the D23 Expo, because that's where I probably first saw actual content of this film. That really helped get me excited just as an audience member to go see this film.
Excellent. And go ahead, Becca.
Well, it was honestly visually stunning, and
And you've seen it twice at this point?
I've seen it once in 2D, and I mean, going in, I was like, when I saw the trailers, I wasn't sure about like if I was gonna be able to take the voices seriously coming out of the animals and stuff like that, but overall I did, and
There you
I
go.
didn't.
Well, you and Sarah share the same fear that originally Jon Favreau did, so you guys are in the same boat.
Maybe that's why it got addressed so strongly. Just that it was a very minimalistic movement of the animal's mouth. I feel like that's what really sunk it in for me. There was none of this wide expressions, grinning. It was all in. If you muted it, it would look like very natural animal lip movements versus trying to make animals look like they are talking.
Well, yeah, and I think we didn't hear your opinion before.
I mean, I'll sum it up. I loved it. You guys, I'll echo everything that you guys have said overall. And one of the things that I do like, I trusted it because what I liked about Cinderella was that they took the story and rather than embellish it in any sort of way, they just told it, and they told it beautifully. So I hope that they did it with this one, and when they did, I was like, okay, great, this is fantastic, and I like what they're doing with these live-action movies.
Yeah, and going to the animals talking, it was a huge concern for Jon Favreau. How am I going to do this, and how am I going to have him interact with the kid? And I love that he actually took his inspiration from the 1967 animated movie, in which they used movie magic, movie trickery, because in the animated movie there were times where the animal's back maybe towards the audience, or the way in which it's filmed where they didn't have to animate mouths moving, and he did the same thing here. And I never really thought about it but there were certain ways in which the animals are filmed, especially the wolves, where the camera was above the nose, so you didn't really have to see the mouth moving. They were just talking, expression, and you got it. And I'm like, well, that was genius. I thought that was great camera movie trickery to get us to believe that animals are talking. And it wasn't done in a Babe way, which I love Babe. Don't get me wrong. And they didn't do it necessarily with puppets, although he used puppets on set to interact, but I just thought it was flawless. And he also made sure to not have the animals do something that they wouldn't normally do as well. He embellished the animals. He might have made them look a little bit bigger to make Mowgli seem smaller, or just build a character. But I just love the respect for the animals and how they were.
Well, PETA has signed off on this movie
Of course,
2,000 times over.
there were no animals harmed because there were no animals.
Yeah.
What are they gonna say? Protect the CGI. How could you?
No, but what they are saying is that, you can make a beautiful movie without having to do any harm to animals, and so.
Right.
But anyway.
Yeah, you just throw a couple extra million in there and you'll be fine.
Just have money.
But let's talk about the development of this, because it kind of comes full circle in a way, because it started with Warner Brothers and Disney pretty much simultaneously announcing the Jungle Book, and then lo and behold, Warner Brothers was kind of winning the race a little bit, but it's these guys, Disney, who got to the finish line first.
Can we say that Warner Brothers has now lost the race?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say,
A little bit.
But yeah, I mean, Warner Brothers. I mean, they're in an act of desperation at this point. They've just hired Alfonso Cuarón to come on board to help Andy Serkis, who was the original, director of this film, and that can't give Serkis much confidence as his this was supposed to be his calling card in directing a big type of an action movie, and at that point, but Hollywood does this all the time, whether it's two volcano movies or what, and this is a movie. There were two Jungle Book movies, and Disney beats them to the punch like big time. And I'm sure they were waiting to see what the reviews, above and beyond, is this a good movie? And the reviews have been stellar. And now Warner Brothers is like, well, I think they're just too far in where they just can't say, let's cut it. Because I think they just got too much money dumped into it already, where they just have to keep on going forward. It's going to be tough.
Spot.
They're in a really hard spot.
And then with the talent they have behind it, I mean, I'm a huge Andy Serkis fan, and I just feel bad. I just feel bad for that to be in that position, because you're going up. I mean, Warner Brothers is a giant, but Disney is huge and has the media power to keep pushing this movie, to keep it alive, to put it in parks. It's not something that Disney movies don't come out and you forget about them 3 months later. They make them last through products, through rides, through all these sequels.
Yeah. Well, also, I mean, this is the third Jungle Book. There's sequels to the Jungle Book. So, but discounting those, obviously the '67 version, the 1994 version, which none of you apparently have seen. So,
I've seen it.
It's good, right? I love it.
I saw half of it.
Okay.
That is the testament of how good that movie is, to see half of it. No, I've seen it. I was just kind of obsessed with these worlds as a kid. I was a 90s kid, so I saw everything that was in the family realm that came out. So
fair enough.
yeah, saw it.
I like the fact that Disney is the one that released this film, because if it was Warner Brothers, I felt it would have maybe taken away the family aspect to it. It would have made it more adult kind of situations.
I might argue that Disney did that, though.
I mean, yeah, Disney did, but Disney can help keep it catered to the child, to the younger demographic, to the older demographic as well, because Disney does so well bringing so many people to watch this film. And I feel like WB had WB taken over, it would have just catered to a certain area.
We'll find out, but I just like the history, right? It just fits in the Disney history, right? Sarah said they have a way of keeping it going. Well, they've always had it.
Yeah. And it was just released too as like a diamond edition Blu-ray about a year or so ago. So that I think is what comes to mind. And I'm trying to figure out what the hell Warner Brothers may have been thinking in the first place to even, say, and I think they were trying to get the jump on because of Cinderella. They go, well, what other live action thing what can we do as a live action that may have been animated once? And they go, oh, the Jungle Book. And then Disney's like, well, we're doing the Jungle Book. And then it became like, who's going to beat who to the punch? But it's hard to beat Disney at their own game. And their own game, this is a movie that was already beloved as an animated classic that has been seen by generations and generations. So when you think Jungle Book, the sad thing is you're not really thinking of the original author Rudyard Kipling. You are thinking of Disney's Jungle Book. So Warner Brothers going into this, I mean, I just would have, like, that executive's idea, they should have said, let's just stay away from this.
Well, also with Disney, you have Pixar, and so Pixar was heavily instrumental in the development of the story and things like that. Not
huge,
you know.
Yeah, and again, John, you're absolutely right. Jon Favreau wanted to make sure that story-wise, they had like a strengthened narrative, and he went to Pixar because he knows how they take narrative so seriously, and he wanted that for Jungle Book. And I mean, again, when you're part of that family and you're able to use those resources, to me, that's fantastic. And the mere fact that Favreau was not secretive about it, like he said, yeah, I wanted to make this a great movie, and this was literally this corporation's collaborative effort to get Jungle Book out, but make it good, you know.
Absolutely. Now, one of the things I found interesting was there's been comparisons to, like, they pulled from Goodfellas, Apocalypse Now, Shane, and all these kind of various movies, and I thought that was an interesting comparison, which now, having seen it, I understand, but it's not something that I would have recognized initially, and if you had told me without seeing it, I'd be like, how? Why? So I just kind of wanted to get your perspective on those elements and how they fit into them.
Because I wasn't looking for them, those references, I didn't see them as much. I was more drawn into this movie, at least when it came to more like Easter egg things, at seeing what they pulled from the animated version, and like to recognize the kind of like frame moments that they took from that movie. So that was what I was registering as I was watching it, being like, I remember when Mowgli flips like that through the monkeys, like I remember that moment from the animated, like I could see it. So I wasn't really searching my brain for all of the outside the box references. Coming out of the movie and hearing that, I think that when you do draw from things that inspire you that maybe aren't automatic references, that helps. Because there are reasons those movies were successful. They can be inspiring. It can be why you'd want to watch this movie again. But I was so entertained enough, and I was so drawn in by the smaller Easter eggs, Disney Easter eggs, that I wasn't like craving looking for any other parallels, if that makes sense. Like, it was so suspenseful in itself.
But now, I mean, now that you know, like, again, King Louis's entrance is Marlon Brando's entrance in Apocalypse Now. I mean, it all makes sense. I would have never, I wasn't, again, I'm so into the movie, and I was like you as well. I was looking for the Disney-esque type of, like, what nods are they going to do, to the movie. But, when you look at the Rules in a Dangerous World from Goodfellas, which was, you think about it, it's all there. But the King Louis, I mean, and the fact that I loved how they changed him from the orangutan to this mythical, he could have been the last of his kind type of a gorilla who, he has his kingdom, so to speak. And I loved what they did with that character, and even how that character was voiced. I didn't have a problem with Christopher Walken's voicing the character. It was his singing that sort of kind of took me down. His singing sort of. But I love now when you think about it, he's totally Marlon Brando's character in Apocalypse Now.
So let me ask you guys this. So let's spend a little time on story, right? Because I thought the combination of the various things created amazing stuff. And for me, the two that I enjoyed the most in terms of symbolism and story elements was, number one, Mowgli in terms of his trickery. Like, you can't do that. That's not what a wolf does. Yeah. And it wasn't until he kind of becomes his own person and accepts that he is a man-child that things go well for him. And the other thing, I love Shere Khan's speaking about, what a cuckoo bird does, and they lay the egg with the other mother. I thought that was a great additional part of the story.
This is the second cuckoo bird reference we've had within 6 months of each other. The first cuckoo bird reference came from Spectre, James Bond. And it was almost like word for word.
And it comes from a play called Two Rooms, when there's a huge monologue in it, like, that's been around for ages. Like, it's constantly pulled out in theater and film, the cuckoo bird reference. Like, it's been around for a long time.
Village of the Damned as well. Yeah, but it was just like, it was weird to hear almost the same exact speech was like, oh, I just heard this from Spectre, another cuckoo bird reference. But the way in which
perspective.
Idris Elba is voicing for Shere Khan, and he tells of that story, too, was, again, very intense. And it came in an intense scene in that movie as well.
Yeah, I agree. The story made him very scary.
Yeah.
And I think also just the storyline of the flower, and and the red flower. I think I liked how they expanded upon that to give Shere Khan a better story and a better reason, motivation why he's after Mowgli so much. Whereas the animated, you just got a little bit of it, but like this actually gave him a reason why he disliked Mowgli so much.
Yeah. Becca, what was some of your favorite elements?
I don't know. I mean, I liked the red flower thing was like, I don't know, that's one of the moments I didn't take as seriously.
Why not?
I don't know.
Because to me,
kind of laughed
one
during
of the reasons
that part when it was introduced.
it was what?
You laughed?
She laughed.
When
Why-
it was introduced.
What
by-
caused laughter?
No, well, by King Louie.
Got it.
Yeah.
So
like
the
just
means
the
in which by it was introduced, it was a little too comedic to be taken seriously,
Yeah.
especially when that is kind of the crux of it, and almost the central message of the movie was that man has destroyed
Yeah.
animals,
Right.
especially as we talk about on Earth Day.
I think
See, I didn't laugh at all. I took it as a very serious thing because King Louie wanted it so much for power to be literally the king of the jungle now. And then Shere Khan was like, hey, this is something that destroys it, and this is what mankind can use and destroy. And so, like, I saw it two different things, that it was something so powerful that is not to be messed with.
Yeah.
I just couldn't take it seriously with like the singing part after, during that.
And again, like all through our, history of caveman, like scientists, anthropologists, all these people go back to the invention of fire, and the invention of fire and the will is what really changed things along. Like, cavemen developed weapons. They made a spear, but when they invented and came up with fire, like that was a game changer.
Yeah.
They can use it as a weapon and as, all that they can do. And in this movie, I love the dichotomy of one can use it as, there were three issues of how fire can be used.
that's exactly what I was going to say.
There was fire is for warmth. Fire can be people it's a socialization for man. Everybody can goes around the campfire. King Louis saw it as a means of power. If I have
power.
fire, I have power. I can do that. Where Shere Khan saw it as a major
Danger.
threat to his environment. And in that environment was man has control over fire,
Yeah.
and they can wipe out our environment and our way of living. And I just the three aspects were really pointed out.
And then
very well done.
I'd say that's exactly what I was going to say. Is I have two favorite story elements. One is the multi-use of fire. The fact that not only is it visually engaging throughout the whole film in different ways, like utilizing very different film aspects, from the giant bonfire you see to the torch to the danger zone, but it is utilized for almost every character in a different way. For Mowgli, it's they talk about that his signature to become a man. It's the relationship between the forest and the village. It's all through the red fire. It's all their relationship. The fear, the power. It's just constantly used and transformed by whatever characters are then talking about it. And that's like a really strong device. It's central, it's connected to everyone, but it's utilized differently.
Yeah.
And then the second element that I really thought that was added to this story, and it's kind of like what Marisa said, is for me the laws of the jungle, the clear explanation, all the detail of the world that they've created. I really enjoyed the peace rock. Not only was it an interesting concept, but it made sense why these animals weren't eating each other. Like, it added this interesting world, hierarchy, the whole elephants and their role as this almost not someone that they were worshipped. The
Right.
rest of the jungle-
Royalty.
yes.
They were royalty, yeah.
All of those story elements for the hierarchy, the laws, the rules, how the jungle functioned was, I thought, so much fun and so interesting. We weren't just seeing animals being cut over the throat or just being about who could have the claws. It was more than that.
And going, well, go ahead, Marisa.
Oh, sorry.
Please.
I was like,
No,
I liked
no.
how that each animal, there was a level of certain respect for them. Because you got to remember, like the story in India, like elephants are worshipped
the
in
elephants.
India. And I liked how they portrayed the elephants in a better, more positive light, because you had to bow for these. And in the film, I mean, we're going to keep referencing the animated film, but like in the animated film, they were animals to be laughed at. You couldn't take them seriously. But I liked in this film, it's like you could, and they were well respected.
In each case of animal, whether it's like the wolf, like the wolves had their, like, independent of when the peace rock becomes visible, like when all is well and fine in the jungle, then it's just the circle of life. Let me reference another Disney movie. So, it's the circle of life. Things go as they are. But the wolves had their own rules, and you can tell that the tigers had their laws. But once there's peril coming on, there were laws that govern the entire ecosystem, so that ecosystem with its animals and it can survive. So there was automatic truce, and let's come up to this is some water we can all drink. And, we have to stay alive and, in a sense, work together. And Shere Khan comes in and, like, pretty much threatens all that, which, again, made that character so intense because he was so steadfast to his own rules that, he didn't feel that he had to abide by a wolf or whatnot. So it's very fascinating social...
Yeah, I even like with the
system.
peace rock that there was a kind of like a timetable with that too, because they said when the rain comes and this goes away, all rules are out the window. And it's like, I now have the right to go after you. So like I even like that, it was that plot device to move the story along.
Right.
Let's talk about Shere Khan, Idris Elba, because what I like,
voice.
his voice is fantastic.
Amazing.
Very,
So good.
What I like about him was, as you guys were kind of talking about it, one of the interesting parts for me is like he's always been the in these Jungle Book stories, to me, like he's been the king of the jungle, but in this movie they make him very much a self-proclaimed king, not by anyone's will or choice whatsoever, and I kind of like that, again, going a little bit deeper with that aspect of it.
Right.
Which I thought was great.
Completely agree. Both him and King Louis are just like, they've declared themselves, but it isn't actually the way.
Yeah.
Like, if anything, the elephants.
And, to me, the difference between King Louis and Shere Khan, I mean, King Louis sort of kind of stays in the shadows. He has his own little thing. He's not challenging the wolves. He's not challenging that lifestyle, that ecosystem. Shere Khan pretty much comes out and he challenges everybody, and he says, "You're gonna lose." And and I loved, again, after the research on it, yes, they made the tiger a little bit bigger than normal because he had to show the power that he had, and they made a point of showing his eye. And I love how that whole mystery, comes. It's just another plot point, but Shere Khan comes on to the thing, and it's by brute force and fear that he is going to end up ruling. And that one scene in particular where he shows up, like once the peace rock, and again, this was another scene that I was like, when I found out this movie was PG, and he literally comes up to the top of the mountain where I forget the Papa Wolf,
Akela.
and he just comes up to him unceremoniously, and he just like picks him up and tosses him off a cliff. And that happened, and I was like, wow. I go, can he come back from that? I'm like, oh, maybe not. I'm like, wow, he just killed the head of that prop.
Yeah, I like that. It added a very shock value to his character. Like,
Absolutely.
if he could do that to a wolf, what can he do to the other people in this film?
And the wolves knew that the tiger is more powerful. That's you were saying it too. It's like we knew certain animals were more powerful, but I look at a wolf as being, I don't want to be attacked by a wolf or a tiger or a bear.
But it spoke to the jungle, right?
Yeah.
The whole notion of like a wolf stands with the pack. The pack is only as strong as the wolf, but the wolf is only as strong as the pack. And in that moment, there was no pack. It was just him.
Yeah. They lost their leader.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Going back to the clinging of the wolf. I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah.
But it was just so interesting to me because we've seen in multiple Disney movies, typically animated, animals die.
Yeah.
Whether it's Tarzan or Lion King, like there's visual reference to this, but there was something so much more
And
heart-wrenching and scary about this because of how real it looked.
It
Yeah.
felt effortless. That was the whole
that was
thing
the
of
other
it all.
thing,
It's
too.
just,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It almost, it's the equivalent of like someone having a gun and just pulling the trigger. If that's how easy it is to kill somebody.
Yeah, and
It's true. Well, the thing is, it's also like for the other Disney movies where you actually do, for the most part, see someone dies, like you get a goodbye moment. It was like they get their last say. This one was just so fast
True.
it was
point.
very sudden.
And I think it also kind of goes along the trope of like there's always one parent that dies.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Well,
oh shoot.
But even add to that, though, it was before that happened. Okay, it was said, it's like, look, Shere Khan, like, your things don't apply anymore. Like, the boy's not with us. He's out in the jungle.
Yeah.
Like, the rules that you made up, like, can't apply anymore because we pretty much did what you asked. And he's like, no, you didn't give them to me. And you still had no idea. Like, it happened with such brute force, and it happened so
unexpected.
fast. And he just picked them up, threw them off, and, well, okay. And he's like, so... And he's making his point going, I said this was going to happen, and it's happened. Where's the boy?
it was just sudden and unexpected.
Yeah. And again, I was like, this is a PG movie. I mean, that was
don't know.
brutal, and there were scenes we'll talk about going towards the end. I felt were equally as intense, let's say, for a PG movie.
Absolutely. Becca, what are your thoughts early on Shere Khan?
I feel like the sound made it more intense. The scene in particular where Mowgli was running from Shere Khan and Bagheera like comes in and fights with Shere Khan.
Just
Those
loud and
sound
intense.
effects, yeah. The sound during that, I jumped out of my seat. So, yeah.
Absolutely, and you know, they what I liked about it too, they played a nice dichotomy of, you know, here we are with the wolves, here we are with Mowgli,
Right.
and so you knew that they were kind of it was
Yeah.
a ticking time bomb to get them together in the same place, and that. So why don't we kind of let's talk about Mowgli, right? Because I mean, he's our central character. We'll probably spend a lot talking about him, but
It's great.
you know, obviously Demetri mentioned that the movie ending changed. And I wanted to kind of get your guys' opinion because it was one of those things of like, okay, what's ultimately going to happen? Is it just going to end with him going because that's what he has to do? Or is he going to me, like in the 1994 version, going to face the tiger and beat the tiger? Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to kind of, what was your early predictions, if you remember?
I didn't know how they were going to end this movie, predicting wise. I mean, and
Or what were you hoping?
well, at the end of this movie right here?
Yeah,
I would-
well, when you watched it, what were you like, you know,
Well,
I
I
hope
was-
this happens.
I was hoping that it wouldn't end the way the animated movie ends. Because to me, it's sort of kind of unfulfilled because throughout the entire animated movie, these are his friends and family. They're the ones who brought him up. And, you know, a girl comes walking around and he's like,
But
"What?"
many a good friendships are broken over a girl.
I get it, but he didn't even turn back.
Sometimes.
He didn't even say adios. And I was like, it just sort of ends. And this one I thought had a well-rounded ending that not only has Mowgli grown, but I'm thinking sequel-wise, like now we're going to get a good coming-of-age story where he can end up in the man world, and how are they going to approach that? You know, I expected him to somehow end up in the man world, but I was hoping they were going to handle it better. I'm sort of glad. I loved what they did. In fact, I think it's just better that way.
I had no idea this was where they ended. I wasn't really predicting a change. I thought it was going to be very similar to the animated, and what they chose to do was better. I thought that if we were going to see a fight, it was mostly going to just be Mowgli versus Shere Khan. At one point, I was like, maybe the elephants will come in and save him. That was a fleeting thought. I thought that the fact that we got to see not all the other animals, but our central other animal figures, Bagheera, the wolves, Baloo, kind of reattack, even though we'd already seen Bagheera attack, so we saw him attack twice, which I thought was unpredictable, but I liked that reinforcement. I liked that the elephants didn't ever come in until the end and kind of did their separate but inclusive role as royalty or whatever. I thought it was handled really well. Was I expecting it? Not at all. But I liked it. I think that it was character building. I think it was theme building. And so applause to them for thinking outside the block and box.
They really fulfilled. They really
block.
fulfilled. Or filled out the narrative in a great way that wasn't a cheat. Like whenever there was exposition, I didn't find the exposition to be like cheated. Like when Ka. You know, Marisa, I remember you and I having a conversation about how are they going to handle the boa constrictor with Scarlett Johansson. And I'm like, well, Jesus, I go, they have to do something because they can't have it with the googly eyes. And he's hypnotized, but yet they used Scarlett Johansson's voice, which was so hypnotic itself. And then what they did with the eyes was great. But that scene, like, it was all exposition. We got background about Mowgli, even though he couldn't put two and two together that was him that she was talking about, so to speak. But it was a great way to put an exposition in this story that we didn't really know about his background and what happened about Shere Khan.
It's filmed so beautifully. Like,
And it was really in the eyes came into play, but they weren't like the spirally eyes.
What I liked about
the voice.
They were at circus tent.
I like the back. One of the reasons I like the backstory is because it made it even more harder to say, okay, is Shere Khan the bad guy or are human beings the bad guy? Because it was Shere Khan who attacked the man initially, and then much like you predict anyone in the jungle, if you're going after someone's child, you're going to protect yourself,
right? Yeah.
Whether it's with the red flower or whatever,
right?
And that's what it ended up being, and so it kind of gave that more weight.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, same here. And again, it wasn't a cheat. It wasn't just lines of dialogue to have like a character uncharacteristically say something. This was a story that's absolutely, and it was a story that's throughout the entire jungle. So I was like the jungle knows this. Like if a boa constrictor knows this story,
everyone knows.
You know,
what I liked about it was that because if you go back to the animated film, there's only like 2 or 3 scenes with Ka in that one, but that was for like comedic purposes and interacting with everyone else, and that was for laughs. This one we only had one scene with Ka, but there was I got so much out of this 1 5-minute sequence with Ka that like, okay, that's all we need her for. It was so well done. It's so just great for how they portrayed someone so bigger in that aspect, but yet still played a vital role for such a small amount of screen time.
And Scarlett Johansson's voice again too was like
you didn't even like need the eyes with the voice.
It was great.
Hypnotic.
It's like, stay with me.
Yeah, and Favreau wanted a woman to voice Ka because it's such a male-dominated cast.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, we need another woman in this, and Scarlett just has an amazing voice. I mean, her, her voice was used so well in that film, and I think she was like the perfect sultry, textured voice for their Ka.
Yeah, I'll listen to her any day.
Absolutely. I'll listen to her read a phone book.
That's right. But one of the things that really tied it together, right, for me was the innocence of Mowgli, because he went through this entire jungle and he was so trusting of all these things, and that's why he ultimately ended up in the monkey village, monkey city, whatever you want to call it, was because he's trying to share. Well, that's from the 1994 version. See, if you watched it, you would have known. But he's just so trusting. He's like, here, have one. He's like, oh, no, that's mine. What are you doing? And then it leads to that chase and everything else. So I really liked it. Let's talk about Neil a little bit, because he is this movie. And one of the things I appreciated about Bill Murray was on the Kimmel interview, Kimmel's like, oh, you're one of the stars of the movie. And he's like, no, it's his movie. I'm just in it. So I appreciate that Bill said that, because without this kid, this movie would not exist.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Oh, he was fantastic. I thought his the way he got the role was interesting. Like how he
Tell
was
us about it.
How he was in dance class and his instructor told him about the movie.
The audition?
Yeah. And
Yeah, gave
Gave him
I
a
think it was a
flyer.
pamphlet.
Perfect.
Yeah,
So,
it's like flying.
Yeah. So thankful.
He just
for
showed up.
her.
I can be the naysayer on this one. Was not a huge fan. Not a huge
You
fan.
weren't a fan of this Neil Sethi kid?
No, not too much.
I thought he was brilliant.
Honestly, like, I just could see it. It felt forced, a lot of it. And it's a kid, like, I understand that, and I'm not saying it ruined the movie in any way
Picking
for
on
me.
an 11-year-old.
I'm being so mean. It's because, you know what it is? It's because I watched Room last year, and now that kid has put the level
Started
of, like,
Jacob
child
Tremblay.
acting so high
Yeah.
for me. Now I'm like, oh, we
But
can
he's
put
white.
Oh my god.
And in the room.
What?
Has nothing to do with talent.
No, I'm not saying no. But here's the thing. What I'm saying is, I wouldn't want him to play Mowgli.
Right.
I'm not saying I would want him to play Mowgli, but it has just shown what kids are kind of capable of acting wise. And for me, there was a lot of times that it wasn't believable. He was sweet and endearing and had a lot of energy. I'm not taking those things away from him. And in certain scenes, that is what they needed. And in the innocent scenes, he really brought that. But in some of the other scenes where he was like whining or arguing or causing confrontation, I didn't believe it as much. I'm not saying the movie's bad. I'm not saying that, like, oh, this kid is a horrible actor. He's a kid. But I can't tell you that I completely 100% believed him, that he was a kid in the jungle doing these things.
But
Sorry.
He also had to play pretend for
Well-
the majority of all of the movie.
Well,
The
yeah.
whole
I mean,
movie.
yeah, and again, I don't think the kid. I don't think this Neil goes into this movie thinking this entire movie is on his shoulders.
Yeah.
But the entire movie is on
It
his
is.
shoulders. Like it's almost like you feel bad for the I forget his name right now, but you feel bad for the kid that played the young Anakin Skywalker. In episode 1.
Jake Lloyd.
Jake Lloyd. Yeah, thank you. And that movie, in a sense, it relies on the believability, and Lucas just couldn't get this performance. Like I find it hard to pick on a kid. And in that case, I blame a director for not getting out of it. But I think Favreau with this Neil kid got, knowing that he's the only live person on this set, and what Favreau had to do in order to get this kid engaged and make him happy and
comfortable.
look fear and sing with Baloo and do all this stuff. I think, like, if you didn't believe this kid, then you'd have major problems. Like, all narrative would have been washed away. You wouldn't have cared as much because you're like going, this kid sucks. Like, and you don't want to say it out loud like you did. No, I'm kidding.
I didn't say it was horrible.
No, I
said
know.
that part of the time, it didn't work for me.
And if they had found somebody who didn't work, you would have a hard time slogging through the movie. But for me, yeah, he captured innocence. He captured the playtime well, and he was able to run through the jungle and do all this stuff. And he's the only human, like, with the way that this movie was filmed, he's the only actor. Like,
Here's the
on
thing.
set.
I think he had, one of the reasons that they keep going to, he had a lot of confidence, poise, and I think one of the things he also had was energy, right? Because think of it, like, that work schedule for a kid at this age, yeah, it's tough, and you can say, oh, well, whatever, it's easy work, but it is very difficult, and he had to do parkour training, he had all these elements that he had to learn. And it was difficult, and at times, he would get tired, but they'd play his favorite song and whatever, and he'd kind of get back into it. And yes, you have to placate to that, but the fact that he's like, okay, rather than like bitch and moan, he's like, okay, you know what, just play my song, I'm back in. Yeah. That's part of, unfortunately, you have to think about that side of it. And so, I take that side of being easy to work with. Okay, maybe, somebody could have been better, but they would have been a nightmare to work with.
Yeah, and again, you got to figure how many hours of the day that they had to work with this kid.
He is a minor.
Yeah, much so.
Well, what I liked is that physically he was definitely Mowgli.
Yeah.
Like him
Yeah.
running up and like the stamina that kid had to have while filming this, like props to him. I think he really had the physical appearance. I believed him running up and down, the jungle. I liked that. For the emotional aspects, maybe, and this comes to the acting because he doesn't have acting background. This is his first, really his first thing. There were some moments where it didn't hit emotionally as hard as it could have. And then I think that goes with, we have seen some child actors that can just break our hearts. And when it got to like serious moments of like, being a human, man-cubs and death and whatnot, it didn't emotionally hit as hard as it could have. Physically, it was there. Emotionally, not so much.
Yeah. I think because he had given so much with everything else that was fun, I just went with it. Now, and the thing is with the major issue with child actors is like the kid from Room.
Jacob Tremblay.
Jacob Tremblay. Any child actor, whether it's Macaulay Culkin or the kid from The Sixth Sense or what happens is they grow
Fanning.
up. They grow up and they're not the cute child that we knew before, and they don't act as well after they grow up because when you find a kid like a Jacob Tremblay's young and you can believe in his innocence right now and he puts in a great role. This kid is young. He's
don't feel
10,
the
11,
pressure.
12 and that innocence, that wonderkind of it all is still within him, which I think this movie really shows well. And yes, maybe some of the dramatic scenes this couldn't nail. Kid's 12, 11 years old.
I'll
and,
give him that.
Yeah, and I don't know, does he have a career? Well, he's going to be in Jungle Book 2. but it'll be interesting to see when this kid turns 18, 19, 20, if he's still viable. Unfortunately, sometimes these kids grow up and they don't have that innocence anymore. There's a little spark that can be lost. So I say go for it, kid. Go for it, Jacob Tremblay. Get whatever you can. You're doing good work. You're in good company. I was sort of surprised they didn't go with that kid that was in Bad Words.
Oh yeah, he would have been great.
Because that kid was great too.
I love that kid.
Was he a little too older at this point?
He might have been. He might have been. Yeah, he might have been. But I think they did a good job in casting. Out of 2,000 people, whew, that's an extensive. And this is the kid you have to hang your hat on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Becca?
I liked the fact that this was like his first acting gig because like that innocence was there and you could see the innocence, and I felt like because it was his first acting gig, he felt no pressure. Really.
Well, he didn't realize the pressure.
He
I think that's
realize
on
the
him.
pressure that was on him because
And the kid's
he's young.
being touted around in private jets already.
Yeah.
He's already been on a private jet to go to Martha's
no big
Martha's
deal.
Vineyard, so that Favreau can cook a brisket. And he's saying, and I'm playing football with Bill Murray. And it's like,
He just doesn't realize.
No.
Well, what I will say, I think obviously him and Murray gravitated towards each other. You can see it in their friendship now.
Yeah.
And John has been. So I think the adults in this situation have protected him really well from what the realities could have been.
Yeah.
So I always kind of appreciate that.
Yeah.
They did a good job making him feel comfortable.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about Bill Murray, Baloo. One of the things I liked was that I like the characterization of all these people because it's not just, here's a bear. No, this is Baloo because everyone knows Baloo of he just wants his honey and he wants to be lame, and that's where the Bear Necessities song comes in because it's not really about all bears, it's just about Baloo. And I thought Bill Murray was fantastic for this part.
Perfectly voice cast. I mean, I just want to know how they were able to which number did they try to call him on to get him to answer the phone?
That went through my head too. I was like, how did they get him?
How did they get him? But it's amazing that they did, and he did such a great job. And again, when we talk about music numbers, that was the music number that nailed it. Nailed it.
Because it fit his character.
Yes,
it didn't make
absolutely.
it feel like a musical. You just felt like it was a person just singing a song. There's nothing that prevents me from singing a song right now if I just sang wouldn't make this a musical podcast. But if then Marisa starts singing, then Phil starts singing, and then everyone, then you're turning it into a musical, and it's not as natural.
Bart, play the Bear Necessities.
Play the Bear Necessities.
I was snapping and dancing in my seat.
And there are two things to what you were just saying, because Favreau didn't want to make this a musical, but he couldn't he couldn't shy away from the two aspects of the animated movie, which is bare necessities and Be Like You. So doing bare necessities, the other thing that cues it up for us is the brilliance in the score of the movie, because there are wisps of bare necessities when we meet Baloo, but it wasn't, so we're sort of kind of getting primed. And if you're a fan of the 67, you're like, how's this going to work? When's it going to come in?
Yeah.
And they built it up perfectly for when we get to that.
And it's used in what, 3 sections from Baloo himself?
Yeah.
Like there's the humming, there's the whistling, then there's the full song. Like you're building up towards it versus Be Like You is like all of a sudden musical number.
Yeah. And the way in which Bare Necessities was filmed, and the way in which, like, they were in a pool. Like, it looked so real. And and Favreau said, I was in a pool, and we had him, like, on a raft, and I would be splashing him with water. He'd be splashing me back. And, and that to me was, that's incredibly amazing, because you would figure maybe they would take him to something, or no, all done on a room.
Sarah, here's your cue.
Oh, to start singing and dancing?
Yeah.
I'm going to tap dance with my fingers on this table. No.
And Bill Murray did a great job, too. Like, he could carry off the singing of that.
Yeah.
For me, the nostalgic feeling was definitely there during the song.
Yeah.
And it was a big part of their marketing. Like, a lot of people were... That was one of the things when I saw the trailer, I heard almost everyone talk about, like, was the song in it? The song was in it?
Yeah.
Did you hear part of the song? Like, it was a very big, like, as you said, like, heartwarming, nostalgic moment. So I understood why they really...
Yeah.
It was smart of them to keep that song in it.
Yeah, and it was smart the way they marketed it, too, because in the trailers and the teasers...
It is a tease.
It is a tease, because he's just floating down the lazy river, and he's... And then it fades out into black, and you're like, that's so cool.
They played enough.
Yeah, and you gotta admit, that's like one of the aspects that you want to keep from the first film. Like, everyone wants to see Mowgli, like, on the bear's belly. So, like, and I like how they used that to amp up excitement for everyone.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, if they had that in the film, then maybe everything that we love from the original film will also be in this one.
By the way, going back to an earlier question, how did Bill Murray get involved? Well, he read I don't know, this isn't the exact answer, but at 22 he read The Jungle Book, and he was a huge fan of it. And so I'm sure that helped.
Yeah.
So, let's see. We've kind of talked about Scarlett Johansson already, so let's go to Raksha. They wanted to make her a little bit more prominent, as Marisa mentioned. They wanted more females to be portrayed in this movie, and even though in the original she's in it, she's not really featured at all.
Yeah, she's not really a character. She's just there for a second. But I like that because it also shows that even Mowgli, technically being so different from everyone, he still had parental figures in his life. And Raksha, definitely, I felt that nurturing aspect that he so needed. Just in character development, and I'm like, Lapita's voice is just phenomenal.
Yeah,
it's just so soothing, and then you always felt for Raksha when she's protecting her own cubs, let alone Mowgli. And then there was that one shot, not to jump ahead, but that one shot when like Mowgli's like saying goodbye to her, that broke my heart.
Right.
Like, and it was just a simple shot, and they're hugging each other. I was like, oh shoot, this is an animated character that I'm feeling sorry for, that they're parting ways, and I loved it.
Yeah. And she was great too. And again, she's having one of those years where this is the second time within 6 months she's playing an animated, a CG animated character, coming from The Force Awakens and now coming into this. 2 completely different characters. And again, the motherly instinct of the wolf. Again, and I really think it sets up the pack. And you're right, when she was, the right choice was for Mowgli to go away, and that was the motherly bond. And you realize too how much, even though Mowgli's this man-child, he's as part of this pack and family more than anything, and even though his differences stand out, he has his brothers, his sisters, and his mom, albeit adoptive. When she has to say goodbye, it's really, it was very well done. Very well done. Very well done in the way that it was recorded. And, because sometimes they couldn't get everybody in the same room. So, she had to go off of listening to other recordings of other people, and you have to act off that. And she was she's like, yeah, it's vital to have some stuff recorded so you can hear the timbre of people's voices and the subtext, what's going on, and you respond to that. And that's pretty cool. Again, props to the voice casting of this movie because it really worked.
By the way, John acted a lot, for especially the early stuff. He acted against a bunch of the people and they couldn't be together in a room. But one of the things that they also mentioned that really worked for them, they went back in and redid a bunch of the stuff later on as the movie neared completion.
Right.
Which I thought, that's great because obviously things will change and you'll gonna want, now as you see it, you're like, oh, you know what, I could do a little bit better.
Yeah.
So improve upon it.
Yeah, and Favreau had to do a lot of the voices when he was he had to play everybody's part, running around frantically. I mean, and I guess that's the strength of Favreau, particularly in this movie, is how he was able to direct this kid in a way to elicit a response. And Favreau seemed to have worked tirelessly, and he had this inner kid within him that gave him this energy to do like the animal sounds and to play with the kid and to do this voice, and like that to me is a testament to the work that he put in to this movie. And that's why I say you have to, we can't forget about this movie come Oscar time, because there was so much effort put in on that collaborative side to pull it all together and make it a really good movie.
The key is patience.
Yeah, absolutely.
You gotta have patience working with that kid.
Let's talk about Bagheera, because he has always been my favorite character. And when you combine Ben Kingsley and Bagheera, you know what? It makes a good combination.
Awesome.
Obviously, he's known for Gandhi and things like that. But check out the Beast. That's a fun movie.
Oh yeah, Beast is great. Beast he's so good. And against type in that movie, he's amazing.
Amazing, absolutely. I thought he just did wonderful as Bagheera, and really, having the weight of this knowledge that he's, he loves this kid, but he's got to get him outside of the jungle, and also, refraining information from him, such as the death of, the wolf pack leader, and forcing Baloo of like, hey, he's not going to listen to me, but he'll listen to you. And yeah. Go ahead, Becca.
I think if anyone's the king of the jungle, that it's Bagheera. I don't know.
Through wisdom, through wisdom, Bagheera has that.
Yeah.
Has that, has that air about him for sure.
Yeah.
And he's not, and as a Black Panther, he definitely has, some force behind him. He can fight if need be. Go ahead.
I was going to say, well, in character archetypes, your top two characters are typically your wise man and your fool.
Yeah.
And so Mowgli is guided by your wise man, who is Bagheera, and your fool, who is Baloo. Mm-hmm. But when you look at like the pinnacle of like everything from what they call like the orphan to the hero to everything, your wise man and your fool are at the very top, which is why those are who leads him through this journey.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I always loved Bagheera's character, and I think Ben Kingsley, he has such a great approach to it, because he said in interviews and whatnot that the way he delivered his lines, the staccato kind of way, is like he came from a military type of mentality, and that discipline, that way of teaching Mowgli throughout the film, like you definitely saw that get carried across in his delivering of the lines. And I think he just has such a strong voice and such gravitas behind it that you believe every single word he's saying. You better listen to him.
Yeah, and it was Bagheera who was teaching him how to be a wolf, more so than the wolves in a sense. When you think about it, it's like him telling him about, well, this is how you pick out a dead tree. You should have zigged when you should have zigged when you zagged, and this is why. And it was just very interesting that it's like, well, shouldn't the wolf be teaching him how to do this? But
they're busy with the puppies.
Of course, but Bagheera and Ben Kingsley's regal voice and the way in which he was almost James Earl Jones-ish in a way. So yeah, Bagheera was great. Again, fantastic.
Any other story elements before we move on to kind of the more production side of things? That's dying at you.
Speaking of The wolf cubs. I really want a wolf cub. I don't know. The wolf cubs were really cute and well
Get a dog, don't get a wolf cub.
Yeah, wolf cub might eat you when it grows up. Maybe.
I don't know.
Get
My
like a
cousin
little
has a
husky or
half-wolf, and
something.
it's
Does it? A
fantastic.
half wolf.
Pretend,
Yes.
yeah.
And we
Well-
talked to Christopher Walken, right? I
We
mean,
did.
enough. Okay.
We've talked.
Talk.
All right. Before we move on, I want to tell you guys about our good friends over at Casper Mattresses. Sometimes you just need a good night's rest. That's what all these people needed. Just a good night rest.
I
The
need a
jungle
good-
can be a tough place to sleep.
Sleeping in trees, man.
Especially April. It's not only Earth Day, but it's also Stress Awareness Month. And how much reminding do we really need?
Is it really Stress Awareness Month in April?
Were you always aware of your stress?
Oh, I'm aware of it. I just didn't realize it was a month of it.
Well, you
Wow.
can now
And-
supposedly get rid of it by using a Casper mattress.
I
Sleep
could use
helps. Sleep helps, and there was actually a great article from Huffington Post that said that by I forget all the details, but one of the executives was talking about how sleep is important and it's underrated in America, and so sleep helps reduce that stress, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what Casper has done is really made a nice mattress, an amazing mattress. I actually have one. Jeff Graham, our scheduling coordinator, has one. He swears by it. I swear by it. It's engineered with high-tech foam for supportive comfort that guarantees a great night's sleep. Time Magazine named it one of the best inventions of 2015. That's not to be taken lightly. That's a big accomplishment. And so, you know what? And by the way, one of the nice things is that they're much cheaper, right? So instead of going out and trying out a mattress at a store, which you're never going to really understand how good it's going to ultimately be, you get to try it out. 100 nights for free. They deliver it right to your door. It's also why they can do it for a lot cheaper.
They take away your old mattress? That stress-filled mattress? They take that away?
They take the bed bug bite filled mattress. Get that out of there.
I don't know what mattress you're sleeping on.
But go to Casper.com. I'm sleeping on a Casper mattress nowadays.
There you go.
But go to Casper.com and use the promo code AfterBuzzTV and get $50 off your mattress. So you're already getting a cheaper mattress than what you normally pay. It's going to definitely be better. And now you get $50 off by using that promo code
Less
AfterBuzzTV.
stress right there.
That's right.
Right there, less stress.
See? I feel good.
God bless you.
All right, let's talk about. You guys want to talk some Easter eggs? There were so many Easter eggs in this movie.
Which are awesome, by the
Yeah.
ways. You mentioned
Gotta love
it.
Disney for all
Well,
that.
yeah, and one of my favorites what was the opening title sequence was
Yeah.
amazing. Like, so we always start every Disney movie off with, of
castle.
course, the castle, right? And then the way that camera pulled back, hey, the castle's in the jungle. I was like, wow, it was just so cool. And all the throwbacks to the original animated, movie. I found a video link that it should be posted on our notes that has an awesome side-by-side comparison of the various Easter eggs and throwbacks to the movie. It's really cool, but it just shows the time and respect that Favreau and team put into the making of this movie. They didn't want to disrespect. Yes, they went off the page a couple of times, but all in all, there's just great love for being within that Disney family.
Absolutely.
It's great. What were some of your fun Easter eggs?
Here's a kind of amid the treasures of King Louis's temple, one of them happens to be Genie's lamp from Aladdin.
Awesome.
So, I
There's a
mean,
lot of stuff in the cold layers. That's true.
absolutely. Bill Murray, who voices Baloo, as we talked about, his older brother, Brian Doyle Murray, had voiced Baloo in The Jungle Book, Mowgli's Story, 1998.
Nice.
It's a family affair.
Oh.
Anybody want to just grab one from here?
I liked how even at the end, we were talking about throwbacks, like even at the end of the film, we had the book end, literally like reading the book, very Disney-like.
Right.
That's how the animated films began
Starts.
and end, with the whole book opening and closing.
And that was made by Pixar.
Yeah,
Feels like
I like that too.
One of my favorites is Mowgli has a scar on the right side of his chest, which appears to be the letter R, and also has a scar on his left shoulder, which is a K. This is a nod to the original author, Rudyard Kipling, where the R and the K are the author's initials.
one of my favorites too is when all the animals gather for the climactic confrontation with Shere Khan. There's a shot of a warthog and a meerkat, obviously a nod to the Lion King.
There's a few nods to the
Yeah.
Lion King, visually at least.
Yeah, Becca, what's your favorite? There's so many. Just pick one.
I'll think. Come back to
Just grab one from
Read
the
the
paper.
notes.
What do you got? Just read one.
I don't know. I'm overwhelmed.
You can't go wrong. Just pick one.
While you're thinking one, I like
I'm
how
so overwhelmed.
King, right before King Louie, Mowgli finds a cowbell, and in the monkey place, and proceeds to pick it up. That King Louie, who's obviously played by Christopher Walken, once famously stated on a sketch on SNL, Saturday Night Live, like, we need more cowbell.
I gotta have more
Gotta have
cowbell.
more
More
cowbell.
cowbell. You know what would
Watch
make
that.
this
That's
movie?
a famous sketch.
It is.
Watch it, people. If
You
you
know what
haven't
would
seen
make
it.
this
funny.
sketch? You know what would make this movie more funny? More cowbell.
That's
Have
right.
a fever, and the only
By the way,
prescription
for a
more
full
cowbell.
list of all these Easter eggs, just we include the rundown in our kind of description, so download it there, and we don't need to necessarily go. But Becca, do you have one?
I was gonna say I actually want to go. I wish I could fast forward through the movie now and just go to where the genie's lamp is, because I missed that. So
Well, now you can.
It's
yeah.
just
Did we
watch
see
twice.
it happens.
Mickey ears?
Mouse
Did we
ears,
see-
yeah.
yeah, mouse
I
ears.
didn't
Did we
find
see
hidden
any?
Mickeys.
Oh, I'm
I didn't
sure
find
there are.
hidden
There
Mickeys.
has to
but-
be one.
Yeah. But
I couldn't
find a
find it
hidden
yet.
Mickey.
and again, well, it was also released coming out in 2016. It's if my math is correct. Well, why have math? It's right here in the notes. 49th anniversary. It's. I
If
mean,
it's
it's.
wrong, you can just blame the paper.
Oh yeah, I'll blame. Yes, I will blame the paper. So yeah, the 49th anniversary. Again, I'm going to throw this back to the Warner Brothers. I'm sure they may have planned for the 50th
50th.
anniversary to have this come out, make it a big deal. But Warner Brothers at the time, they were leading the race. They were getting cast, their director, and Disney said, "F you." Like we need to really amp this up. And listen, if you don't think those executives swear, like they're like, we can't have them out Disney. Like we got to get this out. So, and look, I don't know if it's true, but it sort of makes sense why they went 2016. They had to beat them to the punch. And again,
well,
what
this movie
happens
actually
if the
got
Warner
pushed
Brothers-
back a little bit.
A little bit, but
Not majorly, but a little bit.
after knowing that
reasons.
Warner Brothers
Yeah.
was gonna not.
That's like they
compete with
pushed
them.
really hard and they were like, well, we can't quite do that.
Yeah, we need to,
Back up a little bit.
and again, it's these are all fun things to talk about movies
Yeah.
in theory. Like, what if Warner Brothers had come out first, and what if the Warner Brothers movie actually turned out to be a really good movie? Like,
Then Disney missed out.
then Disney's on its heels,
What?
going. We have to because we don't know. That's the one thing we don't know is what this Warner Brothers movie.
Well,
been.
and you assume that Indie Circus has such experience with motion capture that could have been a whole point of conversation,
Right.
of marketing, of everything. You have someone who's basically spent half of his career in a motion capture suit.
Have
But if you have him bringing that experience,
Right.
spreading around the test, that's really strong publicity.
Absolutely.
Like you're learning from a master of that art.
Sure.
So that has a strong component. It's just like who can get there first.
Yeah, it's who can get there first.
I think Disney, no matter what, would have had more success just because of promotion techniques.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. You never know. And Warner Brothers, I've praised them. I've
Yeah.
dissed them, but I've praised them for their marketing. You just don't know. Now they're on their heels. I think they were in
Yeah,
a
and
very
what's-
big hole.
Just a quick question in general. Do you just try to really make a good movie, or do you just kind of just try to make a decent movie and just call it,
If you're
okay,
Warner Brothers?
Yeah, and we're just going to take the loss, but we're going to try to make some money back on it, but we'll take over.
I think they're trying to make when
decent
you hire
movie, a really
Alfonso
good movie.
Cuarón to come in to co-direct, you're really you're telling the world, well, we're still going to go through. Like now it's all about saving face.
Yeah.
And at this point, they have to do the best that they possibly can. They're probably going to end up throwing more money into it than they may have wanted to originally. I mean, you're already doing it if you're hiring Alfonso Cuarón to come in. And, you know, if the movie ends up doing well, I just think they should probably change the title and call it, I don't
Bare
know.
necessities.
Why not? Like,
Or just
Mowgli-
Jungle Book, drop the
Mowgli's
duh.
Adventures.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. They have a big thing ahead
Yeah.
of them for next year. So, one thing I did want, you know, we're going to talk about special effects.
Absolutely.
Obviously, you know, it's really interesting because many of the people, at least John Landau, comes from, you know, he's a longtime James Cameron collaborator. He worked on Avatar, which, if Avatar didn't exist, it would be hard for this movie to exist. And Landau worked on this movie. And I heard a lot of people saying to me, not to me, but a lot in the press about this, like, you know, better than Avatar and all this and everything. And I'm like, well, John Landau will even attest to the technology has come a great ways.
Farther.
I mean, and again,
Well, think about it this way: the Jungle Book that we're watching, it's technology from a year, 2 years, possibly even 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, that's just the nature of filmmaking.
right. And, you know, where I will always defend and where I always praise Avatar and that whole process is that James Cameron with his crew gave us a world that just doesn't exist. I mean, everything in Avatar comes from an imagination. Pandora it doesn't exist. When you're making Jungle Book, jungles exist.
You have
you have
something to go off
an
of.
amazing reference. But what was fantastic and they were able to do is just take the bare necessities, right? Take that scene alone and look at the hair on Baloo's like body and the way that it floats in the water. You know, it was just amazing. Like, I actually thought that I was like going, there has to be scenes where they're on some semblance of a location filming this. And then I found they're not.
Nope.
That to me it's fantastic. But you have a blueprint to go with, but they did an amazing job rendering and fully realizing our own world.
Baloo took the most to render.
Yeah.
Yes.
He had the most hair.
He was amazing.
We talked about hair in Zootopia. That was a
Right.
fun conversation. You know, I mean, think about how much hair this bear has.
Yeah. And again, another movie within the animal world that sets up its own hierarchy and its own ecosystem for you to believe in. And yet here Disney does it again with the Jungle Book. Yeah, it's just, you know, what a year they're having.
Go ahead.
It's real. It looks real, and it's not over the top, which several people pointed out, like, involved in the movie.
As far as when you say over the top,
Like,
yeah, it wasn't.
It's believable.
It's believable, and I'll you
You're
take
not-
that step further by
Yeah.
you use special effects as a tool to tell your story, but you don't use it as your story. Like, and go ahead.
No, keep going. I'm just completely on board with what you're saying.
Yeah, and this was today's technology. And again, it's this collaborative effort. You hire people like Landau, you hire people like Bill Pope to be your cinematographer, in which they're lighting and pre-vising and it's just quite amazing. And you don't even look. I literally, again, if you're some kid, this kid is thinking this was filmed in a jungle.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a scene that I felt looked fake. And in fact, some of the cinematography,
I thought the
whether it's
ending with the book
sunset-
was a little
my-
fake, but
Well,
That was
Fair
more of
enough.
an ode
Yeah.
to what was real
but
or not.
there were sunsets, and there was the way in which the jungle would look, whether it was sunny or whether it was bleak or you know, or a sense of like you just got this, and the way that it was rendered, it's
Yeah.
fantastic.
yeah, the colors. Go ahead.
As an audience member, like, you're just enjoying the story so much, you'd forget that it's not actually in the jungle and it's not actually, like, real. There's not real animals.
Yeah.
Because it
Looks so
looks
good.
real.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
don't mind if I jump in
Marisa,
real quick?
Yeah, go ahead,
sure.
Mark Donica.
Speaking of the cinematography, one of the things that I noticed about the entire film is it doesn't take place throughout a day, but from scene to scene, it goes from morning to afternoon to early afternoon to night with the final confrontation, and then the ending being a brand new day for our entire story. And I think thematically and tonally that just was something that stuck out in the back of my mind after the movie was over too.
Right on. I agree. Marisa, now's the time to bust out your little $10 booklet, which you can borrow from Marisa by tweeting at her at Serafini TV.
Yeah.
She'll come to your house and she'll give it to you for one
She'll
day.
read it to you.
I might scan some photos.
Charge of
$1.
Sure. And if she gets
What I
11
really
people,
liked
she's made
about
money.
this awesome booklet has a lot of concept art in it, and a lot of paintings that they did for the previous. I loved the color temperature of the
amazing.
jungle, and like just throughout this whole film, because the jungle is a character in and of itself, honestly. Because there were some points where it was green and luscious and beautiful, and then when you're with Baloo, it's so sunny and bright and colorful, and then when you're with Shere Khan, it's dark and red. There's so many different color temperatures to like specific location, which I think really changes with what Mark was saying, the tone and emotional aspects of it. I think it's just great. But the green and the yellow, and I mean, even you can see with our logo, like so many different hues that really like added the vibrancy of this film.
Yeah.
For copyright purposes, that was not our logo.
It's not a logo. Is shifted makeshift logo.
But I wanted to talk about too, going back, photography, lighting, and everything. We were talking about seeing whether you saw it in 3D or 2D. Bill Pope shot the film in 3D, and he used the Arri Alexa cameras on a Cameron Pace 3D rig. Who was that inspired by? And the goal was to make this film look different. And this is according to the second unit director and DP, who is Legato. We didn't go for photographed on jungle locations. We didn't go for crazy beautiful skies in every shot and pristine everything. We wanted to feel like we filmed it. And I totally got the sense that they filmed it, at sense location. And again, that director of photography and working with Bill Pope and production design.
Bill Pope is a legend. I mean,
oh my God!
To me, having worked on all three Matrixes is enough. He's also done Spider-Man 2 and all that. What I liked a lot, and what a lot of critics are coming out with, this is one of the movies to see in 3D. I think there's movies oftentimes, it's in 3D, but is it really worth in 3D? This is worth in 3D. This was designed to be in 3D. This makes 3D look amazing. It really is part of the spectacle, and it adds to that element of you're in the jungle. Yeah,
and see it if you can too. Add to that layer like a premium large format type screen, whether it's like IMAX. Yeah. The sound design you pointed up earlier was amazing and made me jump at certain points.
If you're a child, not so much IMAX.
Well, I just think that again, it was a true, folks. You're not going to get this at home. If screening room is to ever exist, this experience you will not have it at home. And if I can just bring this up, when I was at CinemaCon, Jeffrey Katzenberg came out and did a little presentation, and one thing that he said was, you applaud when you're at the movies. Yeah. Because you don't applaud when you're watching the movies at home. And it really resonated with me watching The Jungle Book. Like that quote came up at least 3 times in The Jungle Book, where I applauded for it, whether it was after the bare necessities or whether it was after the huge fight scene at the end. The whole audience was just applauding. These are complete strangers, but you're all in tune. And it was an amazing, wonderful movie-going experience to see.
I think you always know when you're seeing the best movie when everyone applauds at the end.
Sure.
Because, it doesn't happen at the end of every movie.
No.
Yeah, it doesn't happen.
Here's a quick shout out. So, for those of you who are avid fans of Anatomy of a Movie, if you're not, and this is your first time, I apologize. This is a bit of inside information. Roxy Stryer, who's done earlier episodes, her grandparents saw this and called her and said this is the best movie they've seen. Now, they are 90 years old. So this is better than Gone with the Wind.
I'm going to say, since I talked to her grandparents, I think part of that is because they are getting up there, and I think they liked the loud sounds because they could hear all of it. I loved them. I do. I really love them. But I did talk to Papa about this movie.
All right. Well,
You had another page open in the book where you're going to show a cool picture.
I mean, sure, but if you guys are watching on YouTube, that's just like one of the concept arts. One of many. Every single page is like.
I'm telling you, tweet
awesome.
at Serafini TV.
The mudslide scene was pretty cool.
The painting and just the conception and how they already, just before they even filmed it, they had such a grand vision for like what they wanted this film to look like and how big the jungle was going to be to Mowgli. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And then for VFX specifically, just some quick facts from our notes, which you can obviously find links to. They created over 70 different species of animals for this film. Of course, one of those included the Gigantopithecus, which is the extinct ape played by King Louie. You also have them deciding to make different animals up to 50% bigger, 150% bigger to make them work. Or you had them studying the actual behavior of real animals. There was a creation of almost 1,200 VFX shots. So that's crazy, but tons and tons of work and hours in the VFX world.
Yeah, and one of the last pages that I want to definitely show off of this is there's a nice map of kind of Mowgli's adventure, right? And it just gives you the scope of everything. I mean, the fact that they kind of drew this out and everything. And I know there's like a nitpick that we put on one of our trivia bits about that it takes him so long to get to the Man Village, but then it takes him 2 seconds to get from the Man Village back to Peace Rock. But nonetheless, I mean, you see the scope of it, so I really liked it because, one of the things I do appreciate, I don't think it should be lost that it is Earth Day. And the fact that each of these, as Mark pointed out, each of these is so different and looks so riveting. It makes it look like almost like this is an entire different world and each is its own section. But that's a real life jungle, and we don't appreciate it because how many of us go that deep into the woods?
Absolutely.
What's up, Becca?
Don't plan on going that deep into the jungle.
Oh no, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
No. My idea of camping is booking a room at a hotel right next to the woods.
Yeah.
So
that sounds like a better idea.
With the Casper mattress.
With the Casper mattress, I hope. I
go.
hope it's a Casper mattress because there's too much stress.
Wait, you mentioned nitpicks. I'm now curious about people's nitpicks because I think we talked a little bit about King Louie, and now you brought up this 2 seconds to get back. Does anyone else have any other ones? I have
Becca,
one.
you had a couple that you found.
Oh, I found one about Baloo, like he doesn't climb, and when Mowgli was talking to Kaa, and Baloo came along and like rescued him. How did he get up in the tree?
Huh, interesting. One of my questions was why certain animals could talk and why certain ones couldn't, particularly as obtained to the monkeys. And was it just a choice for them not to be able to talk?
I thought it was a Spanish-English thing.
Oh, okay.
Or Dutch or what, you know what I mean? That's what it felt
Just
like
a
to
dialect.
me.
I thought that too, but I
interesting.
think it was kind of good that some of the monkeys didn't because it made King Louie stand out more so. Like they gave him the lines. He's the more important monkey that we should be focusing on rather than his little minions.
Mowgli addresses it in the movie. He says, "Do you have a language?" to the little pups early
Yeah.
on. So that made me think, well, so he doesn't know all of the languages.
Right.
Yeah.
And if we're seeing this through Mowgli, then he doesn't understand the animals, so neither do we. Also, with how long Kaa was stretched out amongst the trees, I think Baloo just jumped up and found a piece of her and pulled her down.
Yeah, he did.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That was a great scene too.
It was amazing.
Again.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm with Mark. Like I said, I summarized the English-Spanish.
Yeah.
That's it. Simple.
That makes sense.
But I think it was more so maybe just give them more importantly,
King
have the
Power.
focus on the
Gigantopithecus.
Yes, thank you.
King Kong.
Can't say it.
King Kong.
My focus was already
Louie.
on
On King Louie.
the gigantic monkey.
Then the other monkeys.
Right. Now, see if
The
they had,
Banderlog
if at the
monkeys.
end of the movie they had Christopher Walken singing and dancing as Christopher Walken,
That
then I
would've
may
been
have
so
appreciated
great.
it
They could have just moved his song to the end for like over the credits, like the Jack Abbott with the
It's sort of true.
I would,
True.
yeah.
singing at the end.
It wouldn't have
yeah.
taken anything.
My problem is that because Christopher Walken is such a distinct voice, everyone can point him out when he's singing.
Right.
And I was getting like a mobster kind of vibe from King Louie. And I was like, I can't take you seriously because you're literally like
Yeah.
hand flailing at me like a mobster. And I'm like, I don't know if I should like really be threatened by
Well,
you. Right?
in 1967, in all fairness, when you hire the lip, Louis Prima, they knew what they were getting with Louis Prima, and he totally makes that song his own. And Louis Prima is one of the greatest. I don't want to call him necessarily a crooner, but he's definitely a horn player. And him and Neely Smith, I believe her name is. I mean, they were fantastic, and he had an already iconic voice in the 60s. As far as that jazz kind of, which this song is jazz. And Christopher Walken just doesn't, he doesn't have those chops. Again, his voicing was great though. He was menacing, and I found him to be more menacing than King Louie the animated movie. And he's supposed to it's a weird thing when you hire Louis Prima. You're not thinking that this character is going to be a quote unquote bad guy, but Christopher Walken, the way he plays him, you're right. He's very mafioso.
Yeah, I agree with the menacing in this film because it's even the way they introduced him. He was in the shadows, and it took a good minute for him to actually reveal how big he is, how scary and physically grand he is. Yeah. So even that visual effect or showing just how ambiguous but just darker character he is, absolutely menacing.
The thing that upset me about the scene was during the song I was trying to sing along, and then some of the lyrics were different than the original.
The cadence is different.
Oh, for sure.
For sure. So
it's gonna force you to see it again and learn it.
I have to learn the lyrics next time I see it.
Have we talked about? I know we've mentioned Jon Favreau, but I mean, this guy's career.
Let's talk.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's career has been just incredible when you think about it and how he came to LA and with Vince Vaughn and writing Swingers and then you wouldn't expect this guy to necessarily take a directing path, but then he does Made. And then I think he did a Jumanji 2, or he did one of those sequels, I believe, and then he did I don't think maybe it wasn't called Jumanji 2, but it was the one that took place in space.
Oh, Zathura.
Zathura. I think that was supposed to be Zathura. Well, I think it was supposed to be
Jumanji.
Yeah, I think it was supposed to be Jumanji 2.
Yeah.
And and then this is the guy that he does Elf. Mm-hmm. Okay, so he makes an instant Christmas classic, and then they give him the reins to Iron Man, which at the time Marvel had no idea what they were gonna come out of this, and he resurrects Robert Downey Jr.'s career, and now what he does with Jungle Book, then he does Chef. Then he says, you know what?
Such a simple movie too. In between everything,
and he did it on purpose. He said, I don't want the constraints of large budget. I want to go back to making those small films that I was.
Isn't that an ironic thing to say? I don't want to deal with the constraints of a large budget.
Well,
I just want to point that out.
No, it is. But
I think it came more for he's just a great filmmaker and storyteller himself. He just wanted to do another movie for him.
Yeah,
and that was definitely.
And he takes so much pride in Chef. And for being able to get that launched. And then he does a movie like Jungle Book, $175 million budgeted production right there. And again, a lot could rest on his shoulders. You don't know if this is going to be another Cinderella or, is this not
and again, we talked about it. Now you're up against Warner Brothers, so it's hey, good luck.
Yeah, you have to try to make this work. And, he just pulls it off, and he does such a great job. And he's turned out to be an amazing storyteller.
Absolutely.
So,
I do want to kind of also talk about the editing, right? Because I think it kind of goes hand in hand, and it just goes to the collaboration, and I think ultimately the environment that John provided. So Favreau writes, It was so non-linear. You go back and forth. We remade the movie over and over again. Sometimes the editor was asking for a shot, or the cinematographer was suggesting a sequence of cuts for the way the shot is laid out. Which is interesting, especially now, just the way everything's so digital. You can have that literal collaboration, and so it's not that unfeasible by the end of it. When you've shot, you pretty much have at least a rough cut of the movie. Might not have all the bells and whistles, and certainly not something you could present to an audience, but okay, you see it.
Right.
And that's what I love, especially about this, because it needed to. It's very difficult to okay, what are we shooting here today? And I'm acting against what? Oh, I got to be the first one to set this thing in motion,
right.
And then and so as we talked about, the fact that they re-recorded voices as later on once they knew where things were headed, that's part of the process.
Yeah.
And I enjoy that.
In this, that collaborative effort really stands true because you do have to you got to consider the cinematographer. This is in our digital world. Cinematographer says, well, I can fix the lighting over here. We can make this. Oh, okay, that's a great idea. And the editor is going to say, well, to do that, I'm going to need this shot. And so, okay, we can fix it in post.
Well, it's helpful when you have a movie that's 100% not shot in a real place that you can create them because you're not having to go find the location again.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If this was The Revenant, they'd be screwed. We gotta go out to where? Shoot what?
We gotta go back
again?
What?
What I liked this film for the editing pacing wise is that because this is also catered to the young demographic, so you have to have a shorter time span kind of mentality, but you can segment out this film by few minutes of scenes, and you have Mowgli in the jungle running, and then Mowgli here with the elephants. You can segment it out and still have really solid scenes individually. And I think that's also great because that just one after another and kept the audience attention going.
Yeah, and we're looking at a movie that has that's roughly 2 hours, right? I mean, this was close to 120 minutes, if not 120 minutes. Pacing, I thought, was fantastic. I wasn't bored. I was kept watching the screen, seeing what was going to happen
Suspense
next.
was great. Not even just your villain, but with in natural orders, or with the water buffalo, or all spread throughout, which helps.
You said suspense was great, and nothing really says that than the last 20 minutes of this movie. The fight, or not the fight, or I don't know what you even want to call it, but between Mowgli and Shere, the showdown, the trap, the way in which that was filmed and paced is as good as any other action sequence. I mean, that is a set piece. That whole thing was such an elaborate, choreographed set piece with the fire and everything in the trap. And again, Shere Khan, Idris Elba was so scary and intense that you're okay, how is this going to end? How is he gonna get his comeuppance? And again, it was very intense, and I felt this is scary. How is this not PG-13? I mean, how is this? Indiana Jones in the Temple of Doom was PG, and they got lambasted because somebody pulls a heart out of a guy. This movie was extremely intense. Yeah, and again, I was going, wow. And again, I didn't even get captured in the special effects of it all. I got captured because I cared for Mowgli. And Shere Khan was such an imposing villain.
And the music. I also liked how even at the beginning of the film we had the dead tree, and that foreshadowed what happened at the end. I was that was so smart because I didn't even realize that. But the music during that whole showdown, holy crap! Because there was really no dialogue. I mean, we got some menacing words from Shere Khan, but it was really the music that amped up the intensity of what that scene was.
Yeah, John Debney, who was the composer, he did a great job. And again, the mellow moments. He's worked with Favreau and Iron Man before. He really orchestrated. He was able to incorporate bare necessities, and he guided the audience along in a musical journey so that we were prepared, and especially the showdown at the end was fantastic. I also enjoyed when we were talking about various themes you had brought up when we talked about the fire. Mowgli's running through the woods with a torch and the sparks causing this fire. And again, that's what Shere Khan, like, he goes, look, the little man-child caused this. And Mowgli's like, well, wait, how did I, yeah, and you're right. But thematically, it's like, his innocence, he didn't know what was going on. And to me, that was a really, like, if you're not with Shere Khan, man, does he have a great point. But then again, you got to look at Mowgli as like, well, it's an accident, but this accident can literally cause the lives of all this ecosystem here.
Yeah.
I thought it was very well thematically going back to fire.
Well, one of the things I will say, one of the things that I thought could have been added is the fact of, like, well, Shere Khan, you're the mastermind behind all of this. Like, you pushed it this way, right? It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy at a certain point. Like, if none of them introduced the red fire, this and that, like, it wouldn't have happened. But alas, it be.
The like showdown scene near the end. Like, I knew Mowgli would survive and stuff like that, but it was one of those moments where my heart was still, like, racing so fast. I was still terrified for the kid.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you put a kid in peril.
Yeah.
That's another PG-13 thing. Like, the kid is in peril.
Well, it's
so
rated.
you're standing by this should be a
PG.
PG-13 movie.
I'm saying shame on the MPAA.
I know it's PG, but I was gonna on my other one I wrote out exactly because now they're so specific of, like, one puff of a cigarette. One did, like, they're so. So I was
in the
trying to see
ratings,
what
in the ratings now, or you're talking about normally it used to just say, like, violence or nudity, or now it's super specific where it's like rude humor.
Right.
Yeah.
These
Yeah.
are the
Right.
specific things forever, even in
These
animated
words.
films.
I want to know, like, what the rating box has to say about Jungle Book. Like, because I bet you it doesn't say
Probably
intense.
scary thematic elements.
Probably.
What I liked about the intense showdown was that Shere Khan had a better ending in this film than he did in the
Yes.
animated film. Because in
Agreed.
the animated film, he just runs away with it
His
tied
tail,
to his
yeah.
tail. But that left the audience like, oh, Shere Khan never died. He just ran away. And this one, because Shere Khan was so intense and menacing and such a great antagonist, that his ending was so satisfactory for an ending of an antagonist. Like, he's dead.
Yeah.
He's gone.
Yeah, and it was an applause-worthy moment.
Yeah.
Because
For sure.
it took so long for him to fall.
Yeah.
I was waiting and waiting and waiting.
Oh, maybe it sort of
It was
reminded me of Hans
stressful.
Gruber falling off the building.
Yeah. A satisfactory ending for an antagonist.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any updates, Sarah?
Looking through. I'll probably
Okay.
say it as the final thought.
All right. Let's jump to marketing because we've kind of talked about the various marketing aspects. Obviously, the trailer with the song was a big hit. One of the things that I wanted to point out, Disney India commissioned a contemporary recording of Jungle Jungle something. Read that, Marisa.
Jungle Jungle by Charlie High.
There you go. Marissa's better. I'm better
There you
with
go.
numbers. Marissa's better with names. Overseen by the song's composers.
Vishal
You just read it. Read the rest.
And Goldzar, and released it as part of the film's promotional campaign in India.
Yeah, so
composers.
They released the movie in India a little bit earlier. It's kind of part of before it came out here is part of a celebration because it is obviously that's where it originates from. So I thought that was nice in terms of what they did.
And that's good too because to get the actual natural origination or originated place origin of it, I think it's great for them too because it's such a big story and culturally for them as well.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
good for them.
And you were excited for you knew about this movie since D23.
Yeah,
So talk about D23.
August D23 Expo in 2015. John Favreau, Ben Kingsley, and Neil Sethi were all there promoting for the film, and that is when they first released the teaser poster that we all see now. But all the audience got a poster of that, and they debuted the full trailer there. for the first time that Neil himself had never seen the trailer, and so he saw it for the first time with the audience, and his reaction, his reaction after that, he just went up, he was on the stage, and he was like jaw dropped. It was just so cute and so sincere to see him be as impressed with this film as the audience was. It was a neat experience.
Yeah. Again, I think from a marketing standpoint, it's Disney doing what they can do best. They have the plug-in. They could do their D23. The way that they released the teaser, there was a Super Bowl spot, which gets a lot of eyeballs, and I think the Super Bowl spot as well, really, that's where a lot of people's attention focused on, wow, this movie looks special. This movie looks really good. And then, their worldwide marketing. When you look at what it's done worldwide, or when you look at what it's done in the foreign territories already, it's eclipsed what it's done in domestic. I mean, domestic, we're at approximately, 125 million domestic, with foreign at 232. So all of your big foreign markets are really, really gravitating to this as well. It truly is a universal story. And when you open up at $100+ million,
we're only projected, tops was 75 million.
Tops was 75, maybe 80. Again, tracking, blowing it big time. But it also helps when Rotten Tomatoes gives you a 94%.
When they release reviews so early.
Yeah, and then A on
How about this?
CinemaScore.
It just helps when you have a good movie.
Yeah, it does.
It just helps.
It does. It's going to be very funny. Not funny. It's going to be very interesting to see it in its second week, where it has a little bit of competition. The Huntsman opens up, but I'm just saying, from 100 million, we'll see what the drop is going to be. Does it stay within, say, 55? Everybody talked about the ballyhoo drop of Superman, Superman 5 Batman, or Batman 5 Superman. That's what I call it.
Batman 5 Superman.
No, they're calling it Batman V, and I don't go with this. But everybody talked about the quote-unquote historic drop of a 69% drop. The Jungle Book ain't going to have a 69% drop. It's going to be interesting. I think it'll probably somewhere, it could be the high 40s to mid 50s on this. But the word of mouth has been spectacular. Spectacular going into this movie. And, Disney's just on a freaking roll.
Disney's just amazing.
Disney's hardest decision coming up from a world of distribution is going to be, if this movie is still playing strong in 2 weeks, it's we're going to have to make room for Captain America. That's going to be their juggling act. So we got to take Jungle Book off of, a handful of screens, even though it's doing really well, so that we can get Captain America into all these 3D screens and everything like that. That's going to be their biggest juggling. That's their biggest problem. Wah.
Yeah. We're making too much money.
Yeah, we're making too much money. It's
We have too many good movies right now.
Yeah, what a problem for a distribution company to have when you're doing this. So that to me is
Talk
just
about
very
Civil
funny.
War.
Talk about Civil No.
Wow.
Yeah. And then you'll go to the parks and you'll see Jungle Book stuff right next to Captain America Civil War stuff. It's crazy.
Absolutely.
Crazy. Did you ever try Kara?
Well, the most that I've gotten, I don't know if it was actually in the box, but it does say that the MPAA rating is for PG for some sequences of scary action and peril.
I said scary thematic elements.
Full of scary action and
There should also be a
peril.
warning, loud sound effects.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, the interesting part is we've kind of talked about this on some movies, but we don't necessarily get into it too much. The fact that the MPAA is very... You hear a lot of times they're strict and things like that, but you never really... Demetri's dealt with them. I've dealt with them. I don't think you guys have ever dealt with them. They are... You imagine someone just watching a movie and be like, it's kind of like a PG-13 or whatever, and just being like, and there's your rating. But they legit... We have 20 pages worth of notes that we have for this. they'll probably provide 40 pages worth
Oh
of
my God.
notes. Like, no lie. And it'll be down to the single most, you'd be like, I don't even remember that in the movie. And they're like, it's there at minute 14 and 32 seconds and 12 frames in.
Yeah, and I know
Everybody
some people who
JDK.
work at the MPAA, and they're sweet people, but the MPAA, listen, I mean, it's almost extortionist tactics because, you got to hear me out because you don't need to have your film rated. That is a voluntary thing. There's nothing that states if you make a movie, Becca, that you have to get your film rated by the MPAA, right? And so you're like, great. Now, try getting that. And again, you could have made a drama. You could have made a romantic comedy, like a non-raunchy romantic comedy. You could have made a family film. Let's just say you made a family film, but you decided you didn't want to go through the rigors of getting it rated by the MPAA. Then it comes to, your movie's not rated? Oh, well, your top chains, because it wasn't officially rated, they're not going to play your movie.
Yeah.
Even though it's a family film. You could have made a very innocent family movie. Because you didn't get it rated, chains aren't going to play. They're just not going to play your movie. So you have to go through the MPAA to get your movie rated, and then you have to go by their laws. Now, if you're Disney or you're a big studio, you could, argue various points, or you can contribute. You become an MPA member and pay. But if you're a studio, if you're a smaller studio that might not either be able to afford the fee or want to pay the fee, then you're paying the piper and you have to listen to everything they say. And it's not just the movie, it's how you market the movie. It's they have their claws on the poster. They look at the trailer.
Audio, radio spots, everything.
Everything's got to go through the MPAA, and it's supposed to be voluntary. So there's really nothing voluntary about it when you have this gun in your head saying...
The only thing that I was like, they were like down the street from me.
Yeah.
That's as good as it got.
Yes.
And I could go to the office, and that was that.
Yeah, and it's just a crazy system. Now, they're almost like a home plate umpire coach. Okay, you just never know what you're gonna get. And if that umpire at home plate is at least consistent, you go, okay. But if that umpire like really is blowing calls and strikes and balls, like that's crazy. And the MPAA is the same way. They're not consistent. And you can tell where they give their favoritism to and where they don't. And how hard a studio has to work to make the MPAA happy in getting just an R rating sometimes. Just an R rating. And you're like, wow, that's crazy and you can give example. And they love you using example because then they'll just throw it out. So it's crazy.
All right, let's give final thoughts on the Jungle Book, and then we'll wrap it up. Let's start with you, Becca, our guest for today.
Well, I was gonna say something else about the promotional aspects of the film in the trailer. I thought another thing that probably drew more of an audience towards the film was how they had all the names at the end, like the way they presented all the voice actors' names. It just all these incredible voice actors,
Illegitimizes
all these incredible
for
actors
adults.
names next to each other. You're like, oh, okay. Well, all of these people wanted to be involved, so obviously it's gonna be good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree. Demetri?
Well, again, my final thoughts is I really do think that this is I think it's an excellent movie that is deserving of the accolades that it's getting. It's a great collaborative process. And as I've said before, when we're getting into December, neither Jon Favreau nor the special effects department, should be forgotten as far as Oscar, notice. Because, we are truly seeing some great visual effects here. We've got the rest of the year to go. I understand that. We'll see some amazing movies like Passengers that's going to redefine special effects, I think. But this movie, in its own sense, just looked beautiful, and we had good direction and some good storytelling. And I think it's great fun. I think it was very fully realized remake, and that made the animated classic even better.
Even Neil's acting was really good.
And Becca, what's your Twitter?
Becca B Talks TV.
Demetri,
At DMovies1701.
Sarah, final thoughts on Twitter?
At Sarah_Stretton. Final thoughts are that this movie did a great job of really presenting itself as a 4-quadrant movie, bringing in males, females, all different ages and demographics. I thought that, well, I don't think I would take any little kids to it because it is scary and suspenseful. For me, it was entertaining, paced well, looked great, and the voice acting was fantastic. So I really did enjoy it.
Right on.
Yeah. I think it was a beautifully filmed movie, great storytelling to it, and I learned more out of this film than I did the animated version and the book and whatnot. Yeah. So I think they had an amazing feat, and they definitely accomplished that. Mm-hmm. So props to them, and I love Disney, and I think this is such a strong film for them.
Absolutely. I agree with everything that's been said. I'm glad we got to discuss it at length. Hopefully you guys at home enjoyed it. I think it's just a fantastic movie, and the rewatchability on this is through the roof. And if you go see it again in the theater if you can go, time-wise and money-wise, whatever. I think it's really worth it. We'll be doing a lot more movies, as you guys know. If this is your first time with Anatomy Movie, thank you guys for joining us. Hopefully you come back. You don't have to stay for every single movie we do, but the ones you see, hopefully you come back for. As mentioned throughout, you can get our rundown by clicking the description. In there is a link to download it. It's got a lot of interesting facts, so it helps supplement what we talk about, and some of the facts that are would just be basically listing stuff, so you can see it there, all compiled for you. The Popcorn Talk is where you find all of Popcorn Talk stuff. Movie Anatomy is where you find us specifically. Thank you guys for joining us. We'll be doing Barbershop coming up and Huntsman next week, and then we'll definitely be doing Civil War in the coming weeks, and many more movies. So thank you guys for that. We'll see you next time right here on Anatomy of a Movie.
Have a wicked piss a day.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the rest of the Anatomy of a Movie staff, we would like to thank you for listening and subscribing to the show. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to email or tweet us. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been Anatomy of a Movie.